Welcome to Leaders in the Arena. My name is Jenny Whitener, and I'm the CEO at Bridge Innovate. We are a global network of business strategists, consultants, and designers that team up with our clients to spark distinctive strategies, courageous leadership, and agile change to transform their organizations for growth and good. This podcast is designed to share valuable insights and lessons from our clients and our network to support your innovation journey. So I'm excited to have you all with us today. We also have on today's live recording, we have guests who are joining us live. So I'd just like to welcome you and invite you to use the chat today to introduce yourselves. And if you have questions throughout today's program, please post them in the chat and I'll make sure to share those with our guest. Speaking of our guest, I'm excited to introduce you today, Lauren Hall. Lauren is the president and CEO of First Things First. She served as the interim CEO and communication director at First Things First since January of 2021, and then was named president and CEO later that year in September of 2021. She's also served as the First Things First marketing director since 2015, and currently is serving in a number of community roles beyond her CEO role. She's serving as a member of the Hamilton County Schools Federal Programs Advisory Council and as a member of the Juvenile Court Commission. I don't know where she finds time for all this, but she does. She's certified active parenting educator and has been trained in trauma-informed communication. Lauren and her husband Daniel have one son, Strider, but they're expecting a second any day now. And along with these roles, Lauren also sings and plays guitar and mandolin. We are so thankful, Lauren, to have you with us today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so it's exciting. Lauren and I had the opportunity to meet when we teamed up together on the First Things First strategic plan. It was a great project where they looked at what was going well for their organization, where they wanted to grow. They went through a major customer experience analysis with data around their customer focus and put together a complete strategic plan to really take them to the next level of capability. So today we're here to learn more about that. So let's jump in. First Things First has served the Chattanooga market since 1997 by providing resources to people to help them build healthy relationships and strengthening their family relationships. As a nonprofit focused on strengthening families and relationships, the COVID-19 pandemic presented a real unique challenge to their organization and to the community that they serve. They had a desire to shift their audience from not just being the all-in digital, but to focusing on the low risk or at-risk, low-income population. So today I wanted to invite Lauren to talk to us a little bit about where they are going with First Things First and this new population that they're focused on serving. Talk to us a little bit.
Yes. So we started in 1997, as you said. We've been around we're in our 26th year right now. And about 2015, we started using our website and digital communication, really honestly, to reach our local Hamilton County, Chattanooga residents. And what we found was, because it was online, everybody started sharing, more people had access to it. And we were like, oh, wow, this is a really big need. And by 2019, we were at like 1.6 million active users online, digitally, and we were still doing a lot of face-to-face workshops and programs in our community in Hamilton County as well. And then when COVID hit, we had to shift and do everything digitally, as everybody did. And when we did that, we went from reaching about 1.6 million people nationally to about 14 million people nationally without increasing any budget or without increasing any spend. It was just organic growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, first of all, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah. I hate to say it was an unintentional consequence, but it was, fairly unintentional. But during that same time, we actually made all of our services free because, people were losing jobs and families weren't sure of their financial stability. So it didn't make sense for us to charge. for any of our services. And when we did that, we found a gap that there was a lot of low income and at-risk families who couldn't have afforded our services previously that were now using our services. And we were like, oh, this is what we've been missing.
When you think about that growth, I know that this might not have been something we thought about talking about today, but when you think about that growth going from like a million to 14 million
Yeah.
around this content that helps them build stronger relationships and stronger family relationships, what was there something going on in COVID? Do you think that there was just such stress that people
Yes.
needed your resources beyond the normal? Like, is there anything that you would attribute that explosive growth to during that period?
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, as we know, it's come out now that COVID increased mental health issues exponentially. So, one of the biggest things that we were getting asked about was, I think my spouse is struggling with depression, or I think my child is struggling with depression, because we weren't around people. We were all at home. And so there was a lot of questions of like, how do I make sure I keep my family healthy mentally and emotionally while we're, kind of stuck here together? And what do we do? Um, the other piece to that, Jenny, is families were forced to slow down. There was no extracurricular activities,
Mhm.
and they were forced to be together. And so some of those things that when we're busy in life, we don't really focus on in relationships because we don't have time. They were forced to focus on it for the first time in some areas. So yeah, I think that's 100% where our organic growth came from.
Right. Yeah. And I can see that during that really stressful period, people took a moment to pause,
Yeah.
really value the relationships that they had and to look at
Mhm.
ways that they could improve them. And the toolkits and the resources you guys provide are extraordinary.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit more about this low income at risk population. Help our audience understand who they are and what kind of challenges they face in the relationship arena and in the family, strengthening their family structures.
Yeah. So around the low income at risk, we define that as um, couples who are typically living together but not married, or maybe they are married but they make at least at the poverty level or lower, um, and they have children, at least one child under the age of 18 living in the house with them. We also focus on non-custodial parents,
Mhm.
and we focus on anyone who's had generational trauma, or if they are in an occupation that could create their risk for trauma, like a first responder, military, things of that nature. So they're they're the families who typically have the least amount of resources available to them to deal with relationships or to deal with mental health issues and things of that nature. Um, what we learned during our strategic planning process with Bridge actually was when we jumped in and looked at our mission, which is for every family to have healthy relationship skills. When we really interviewed the people we were reaching, 80% of them were highly educated and made, a substantial amount of household income, which is great because they need help too, right? But what we realized was we weren't meeting our mission for every family. We were not as accessible as we wanted to be. And when we truly got to know the low income at risk community and started asking them questions and spent time with them and dug into the research to see what it was that was creating barriers for them to reaching our resources, we realized we had made an unfair assumption in assuming that because we were digital, everyone was going to reach us on their phone, right? Because that's what happens. Um, but what we learned pretty quickly that our reading level was 10th grade and above in most of our content, and the average reading level of the average American is 6th grade. So that was something we had to shift, right? And even the platforms we were using on social media, like we used a lot of Facebook and a lot of Instagram, which was fantastic, but we weren't on TikTok, and we realized we needed to be, or YouTube, like
Right,
some of those
right.
different shifts.
So really getting to know that community,
Mhm.
understanding how they access content, at what level you need to be communicating with them, and then
Mhm.
also through what channels, right? So
Yes.
what was the best way to do that?
Mhm.
Have you gone beyond digital? Talk about understanding that community more, that low income at risk community, what additional programs have you launched with your strategy to reach that community that have gone beyond digital?
Yeah, so um, we were already doing a program called Dads Making a Difference here in Hamilton County. And that was for non-custodial dads who were not compliant on their child support or they wanted to increase their visitation with their children. And what was interesting, we learned this during COVID and we've continued it, is it actually made more sense for us to create a hybrid program where the dads can hop on Zoom just like we are right now from anywhere and meet with us live, like like in person, one-on-one, and have that connection, because there's a lot more trust built when you can meet with someone one-on-one and share your story with them, and then you don't feel like someone's making an assumption of you that is unfair because you've shared your story with them. They know you, right, in a more personal way. And you can ask questions, because that's something that a lot of times when low income or at risk families, they don't have access to resources, they have a lot of questions like,
Yeah.
can I say this in a courtroom if I, am standing in front of a judge? Where do I get food to put on my table? Like, it's not that simple, things that we might take for granted, right?
Right.
So we've become a lot more personal and used Zoom, which frankly is still digital, but we're we're much more available and we're more hybrid now in a one-on-one setting.
Well, I love the fact that you had this explosive growth using digital content, mostly through social channels, I think.
Yeah,
And then by understanding that audience and what their needs were, you didn't completely step away from digital. You
right.
just said, how can we use that, but still bring that level of intimacy, that level of personalization, where I'm talking about really personal subjects, and things that are about me and my children or about me and my family, and how can I use technology to meet me where I am? So if I'm working third shift or if I'm having a hard time getting extra time to commute to a meeting place, I can
Yeah.
pop on with my phone or with a laptop or a tablet and just connect with somebody at First Things First to get that guidance. Is that what you're doing? Is it working?
It's working, yes. So transportation has 100% been an issue for people in Hamilton County to come to our office, every Tuesday night at 6:30 or whatever that looks like. Um, so we try to offer at least two sessions that are in our office or in a common meeting place where we provide food for people to meet and mingle. But the majority of all of our program sessions for moms, dads, parents, couples happen just like we're talking right now, because it's easier for access points.
Are there other, that sounds great. I mean, I love dads helping getting more powerful, and really
Yeah.
they have tremendous influence on the family and on their children. So kudos to you guys for offering that program. Are there other programs that you've launched or that you're growing based on this commitment to this low income and at-risk audience?
Yeah, so there's two that we're working on right now. One is called Songbird, and it's actually the mom version for non-custodial moms of Dads Making a Difference. So moms behind on child support and wanting more visitation with their children. We've been piloting it for the last year, but our first class is happening on October 7th. So we're excited about that. And then we've also grown in our partnership with the Hamilton County School System, and we've started a program called Epic Parenting. And what that looks like is parents who need assistance with their children, or maybe the school will say, hey, your child has some behavioral issues, or maybe we've noticed your child hasn't been in class as much as they need to be. Um, we think you would benefit from this program with First Things First, and it's totally free to them, and they come and connect with us, and we start by offering any case management needs they might have, which case management is a new outlet for us as an organization, coaching, any one-on-one time that they want to talk about issues going on at home or in their relationship that they might need to deal with, and then we put them into different workshops to help them work on very specific skills, whether that's discipline with their child or dealing with their own stress or emotional regulation, whatever that looks like. So we've started that. We started piloting it in May, but we're going full force in August. So we're excited about that as well.
Those sound like great programs. I'm excited for you
Yeah,
guys. And what I
yeah.
love about this is you guys know at Bridge, we are very committed to human-centered design. And
Mhm.
I love the fact that you're really getting to understand your customer, this at-risk population, and then looking at partnerships, whether it's with Hamilton County Schools or with other entities, the court systems, to say where are their needs and how can we connect and partner to meet those families, to meet those individuals where they are, right? And where they're experiencing that challenge. And so I just think it's very customer centric. So many organizations strive to do that, and you guys have found the magic wand to make it happen. So congrats on all that. Talk about some of the impact that you're seeing these programs have. I mean, just personally having a
Yeah.
family, like I understand the stresses of that family relationships and how great it is when it's just copacetic and kumbaya. But talk to
Yeah.
me about what you're seeing on the data side, that when you invest in these tools and skills, what difference does it make for our families?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So one of the biggest reasons we've changed our model of service and become more client centric. When we looked at the low income at risk population in particular, we learned pretty quickly we couldn't sit with them and try to teach them parenting skills if they didn't have food on their table or they didn't have a roof over their head, which meant we had to expand our services to say, okay, first we need to get you out of crisis mode and into stability, right? And then once you reach stability and you find housing or you find that job, we're going to walk alongside you to push you into thriving mode. Like we don't want to leave you because now you have a house. We want to help you grow your family relationships, break generational cycles, and create new ones that will be passed on to your children and generations to generations. So that's part of the thing in the low income at risk population that we saw was it wasn't as easy as asking someone to come into a workshop and just say, hey, let's teach you, communication skills because they needed so much more than that. And frankly, their mental state was not capable of fully grasping it and understanding it at that point because they were in crisis in other areas of their life. Um, so the impact that we've been seeing has really been generational in the fact that it's holistic. We look at it from the form of the family. We want to provide education and make sure they're gaining skills, but it's the relationship skills that really impact every other area of their life, whether it's their job, how they treat their boss, how they friend childcare, how they then relate to their child, how they, handle their relationships outside of work. Like all of those things impact us as contributing citizens in the world. And relationship skills are a part of every area. So it's a much bigger impact than just one family for 13 weeks, whatever that looks like. We want to walk alongside them and really help them make an impact for the next 50 years in their family.
It sounds amazing. And like the fact that you talk about this whole person, like, approaching them, like understanding if they're in crisis, if there's a food issue, if there's a housing issue, getting them stable to then begin to build those relationship skills. But then as you do that, to know that there's kind of this cascading effect, that I might be talking to you about the relationship that you have with your child because we've gotten some notice from the school system that you might need help. But those relationship skills can magnify to all kinds of relationships. You talked a little bit about the sort of the generational carry forward. Like if I've learned bad habits, I'm going to say it for me, right? If I've learned
Yep.
habits from my history, how do I
Mhm.
break those cycles and develop new habits that I want to go forward with? I think that's an interesting observation. How do you deal with that in your coaching and in your teaching?
It takes a long time. So if there's one thing we've learned, it's that nobody's a quick fix, and that's not what we're here for. We're not here to just say We want in and out. Like nobody is a number to us. It's a long-term strategy and a long-term story. We walk alongside people for a minimum of 3 years and hopefully longer. But overarchingly, when there's generational cycles of trauma or generational cycles of just bad habits, or maybe you've always lived in poverty and it's scary to think about being outside of that. If you've lived in 5 generations of depending on the government for housing and someone's asking you to step outside of that, it's hard, right? So like, who are you to do that? That's where when we look at coaching, we try to paint a picture of what life can be, not only for the person that's making the change, but for their child. And if they have mental issues, like mental health issues, trauma that we can't deal with, that's where we pull in our mental health partners and we provide access to them directly and we cover the cost of their mental health.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and then we take them back under our wing and we'll walk alongside them the rest of the way as they're continuing to stabilize. But it's a long-term play for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, we see it in all organizations, right? So you guys have this very purposeful mission around helping to strengthen families and relationships and the power that brings to happiness and healthiness, right, in your life. But that also translates everything you're telling me today. I just mental shift going that actually happens in business organizations, right? Where there are stressful relationships there in the business setting. So I'm really picking up on this, Lauren, and thinking about, okay, how am I going to take this to my clients on the other side, right? Not just in the business family. So great insights today. We have some folks that are joining us live. I just wanted to again reiterate, if you have a question for Lauren, if you post that in the chat, I'll do my best to get that woven into today's program if you would like to ask her a question as we have just a few minutes left. Talk a little bit more about the strategic plan. You had the focus, you had the growth digitally during the pandemic, huge growth, right? And then you assess a target audience that you wanted to really create some specific resources around this low income at risk group. How's the strategic planning process going? I was really excited about the fact that you engaged your entire team in the process, and that was really fun. So talk a little bit more about how the strategic planning process is going for you and how that alignment around focus has been beneficial for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is helpful when you only have 12 people on your team. So it got to the point where we were like, are we going to leave 1 or 2 people out or do we just include everyone? But ultimately, it was such a big shift from where we were that I loved that you allowed us to do that. So thank you. As far as our strategic plan goes, the big thing that we walked away with, and I wish I had a visual right now, but was we've always done relationship education. And this was kind of our circle and the lens that we looked at everything. And as we started looking at the low income at risk population, like we've talked about before, there were needs that were outside of this relationship education bubble. So in the strategic plan, we really built out other areas that we needed to, maybe not necessarily ourselves do, but find partners that could help us assist that low income audience. So case management was one of those bubbles and therapy was one of those bubbles. And in the center, to make relationship education, therapy, and case management all work together, we had collaboration. And what we've done so far is we've already hired a case manager. So she's already been working with us. We've established 20 really close partnerships with other nonprofits in the community. We would like to do more because we have 1,200 nonprofits. So the water is fine. And there's a lot of fish in the sea, but we've established a really great relationship where it's not even just a referral process. It's, hey, I personally know people there and I know exactly what they can do for you. I'm going to walk over with you and get the service you need. And then the same with therapists. We've devised a counselor advisory board. We've met with them twice now. So we don't only refer people to counselors and then never talk to them again, but they come into our space. They tell us what they're seeing. They tell us how we can help them, how they can continue helping us. And we create processes and procedures for that to make sure the people are the center of everything we're doing. And
Yeah,
that's happened in the last 6 months since we finished our strategic plan. So
that's
it's
great.
been huge.
So,
Yeah.
and a new audience that you're making great impact with, new programming, new partnerships and relationships to expand that whole person service. And I like the fact that you were able to do that in collaboration without having to invest, yourself, but use the assets that are in the community, those partnerships, relationships that you have to meet that whole person where they have needs. So, congrats to your team and to you. It's exciting. One of the things as we wrap up today, is there any advice? I know there are 2 points of advice I wanted to ask you on, but
Yeah.
one, I just want to step back for a minute and see for other nonprofits that are looking to go through either assessing their customer base
Mm.
and exploring that or assessing their strategy. Any guidance first? I know we'll cover another advisory point in a minute, but any advice that you would have for other nonprofit CEOs that are about to encounter this kind of assessment? What's your advice for them?
It can be really scary. And I think as a nonprofit leader, there was a mindset we carried into our strategic plan that was, well, we're for everyone. Everyone needs relationship skills. And so when you sit back and you do this assessment and you're like, oh, wait a minute, we can't reach everyone actually. That kind of dilutes what we're trying to do. It's hard to register that, but the truth is you have to have a target audience and a target focus. You have to know you can't do everything all at one time, right? Maybe eventually you can build that out, but the passion that you have for the mission that you're working towards is great. Put all of that passion to assess what you're doing in a specific area and then grow from there instead of trying to do it all at the same time.
Right. So that clarity of focus, that clarity aligned to your mission. Don't try to do everything. You'll spread yourself too thin. I'm hearing lots of words of wisdom
I
there.
know.
So that's
An
great.
inch deep and a mile wide doesn't go very far, you
That's right. I
know?
love it. That's right. And it's deep in my mind doesn't go very far.
Yeah,
Words from Lauren of wisdom.
that's true.
All right. So, it's been a great pleasure. First of all, just congratulations to First Things First for all of the things that you do and the great team that you have to help families. Really, you reach around the world in your digital content to strengthen families and relationships and for what you're doing in the region, and especially this new customer base, a low income at risk community. But all of the leaders that we invite to Leaders in the Arena, we ask them if you have any particular guidance for leaders generally in the arena, what advice would you give them?
To remember that numbers are people and to treat them that way. I think sometimes we can get so bent on how many numbers, what's the numbers, 14 million, we're doing great things. Yes, but what are those people saying, right? Like we can assess all day long just by looking at how successful we're being based on the number, but are you actually changing lives? Are you actually creating a cultural impact that you're chasing after? And how are you assessing that?
Right.
Numbers are people.
Numbers are people. I love it. And we're going to count on that forever. All right. Thank you, Lauren, so much. Best wishes to you with the new
Thank
baby on
you.
the way.
Yay, thank
Congratulations to
you.
you and your team and all the great things that you do. That's a wrap for us today on Leaders in the Arena with Lauren Hall. Thank you so much. We hope that you will follow us again on our podcast series. Follow us at anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, Leaders in the Arena by bridgeinnovate.com. Thanks, Laura. Take care. See ya.
Thank you. Bye, Julie.
Bye.